"You need to leave now," my mother-in-law hissed, hours after I lowered my husband into the ground. I hadn't even removed my black mourning clothes. The air inside the house still carried the sour scent of wilted lilies and spent candles. Mourners had trickled out minutes earlier. Neighbors, cousins, familiar faces that offered hollow comfort until the door clicked shut. Then I heard her voice through the wall. "Pack your bags tonight. Your place is at the curb." My mother-in-law. Her tone wasn't angry. It was victorious. I stood frozen in the corridor, fingers pressed against the plaster for balance. For a moment, my mind refused to accept what I'd heard. But my father-in-law's low rumble followed immediately. "She's not part of this bloodline anymore. Not without our son." 8 years of marriage, erased in a single breath. I didn't walk into the living room. I listened as they divided my life like discarded furniture. What they didn't know, what I'd kept buried, was that my husband had built a fortress around me before he died. Not memories, not sympathy. $200 million. And a restored villa in Tuscany with my signature alone on the deed. At the funeral, I said nothing. During the reception, nothing. While they stared at me like a widow already fated to nothing, I simply nodded when they finished. "Fine," I whispered. Then I climbed the stairs to my bedroom and made a choice that would crack their world open. I didn't pack everything. Only the essentials, one suitcase, my passport, a folder of documents, and a sealed envelope I'd hidden since the oncology ward. Grief made me quiet. The truth made me dangerous. My husband had handed it to me 48 hours before his last breath. "Don't look at this here," he'd said, his voice already thin. "Wait until you're by yourself." I hadn't asked why. Now I knew. I sat on the mattress edge, steady hands, and tore it open. Inside, a handwritten letter and a stack of legal certifications. His script was shaky but unmistakable. "If you're reading this, I failed to stay." So I did the next best thing. His parents would try to seize everything, the house, the accounts, even your dignity, he wrote. He knew. Every sentence felt like a prophecy written for this exact hour. Don't scream at them. Let them think they've won. I stopped breathing because that's precisely what I'd just done. The money, the properties, the European holdings, all in your exclusive name. Not joint, not accessible to anyone else. 200 million. The Italian villa. Untouchable. I placed the paper back inside the envelope. Downstairs, I heard drawers sliding open, footsteps pacing. They weren't waiting for me to exit. They were already claiming what they thought was theirs. I zipped my suitcase, took one last look at the bedroom, not at the furniture, but at the version of myself who had stayed silent too many years. Then I walked out exactly the way they wanted. No argument, no scene. They thought they were evicting me. They were releasing me because they believed they were removing a ghost. They didn't realize I was about to remove them. I didn't go far. Across the street, a small cafe with fogged windows and empty tables. I took a seat facing the building, ordered an espresso I never touched. From that window, I watched lights flick on inside my former home. My home, not theirs. Shadows crossing curtains. They weren't grieving. They were settling in like heirs to a throne I hadn't abdicated. I pulled out my mobile. Missed calls from unknown numbers, relatives, possibly lawyers. I ignored them and opened an old email my husband had labeled read only when alone. Attached, ownership certificates, account verifications, and one line that stopped my heart. Solely controlling beneficiary. Lena Rossi. My name. Not his parents. Not shared. Everything tied to his holdings, the business shares, the real estate, the liquid assets. legally separated and shielded. I leaned back, watching the building across the pavement. She's not family anymore. My father-in-law's words echoed. He was correct about one thing. They weren't my family now. But not for the reason he thought. I scrolled to a number I'd saved but never used. The estate attorney. A woman my husband trusted completely. She answered on the first ring. "Mrs. Rossi," she said calmly. "I believe the moment has arrived," I replied. Across the street, they had no idea the timer had already started. "I've been removed from the residence," I said evenly. "They made it clear I'm not welcome." A pause then, that actually simplifies our position. I looked back at the windows. Lights burning, shadows moving. "Walk me through every step," I said. Her voice was steady as stone. "All assets tied to your husband's estate, accounts, properties, investments are already transferred. His parents have zero legal standing. I expected that. What you may not realize," she continued, "is the home they're currently occupying." I waited. "It's owned by a holding company that answers directly to you." I went completely still. "Meaning?" I asked. "Meaning they're not owners," she said. "They're occupants. And as of this morning, unauthorized occupants. Unauthorized." The word landed like a blade. Clean, surgical, final. "What are my options?" I asked. "You can allow them to remain," she said. "Or you can begin formal removal proceedings." I watched the front door swing open. My mother-in-law stepped onto the stoop, phone pressed to her ear, pacing like she already owned every brick behind her. I replayed her voice, "Your place is at the curb." I let that memory settle. Then I said, "Start the process." "Understood." No hesitation, no moralizing, just action. I ended the call and sat in the calf silence. Not shaking, not furious, just clear. They had decided my worth without my husband. Now they were about to learn theirs without me. And this time, it wouldn't be an argument. It would be a certified letter. The notice arrived the next morning, not delivered by me, by a courier in a charcoal suit who knocked exactly once. I was across the street again, same calf, same seat. This time I'd ordered tea. Still didn't drink it. I watched my father-in-law answer the door, take the envelope, glance at it casually. Then he opened it. Everything changed. His spine went rigid. His eyes crawled across the page once, twice, 3 times. Then my mother-in-law appeared behind him, impatient. "Who's there?" He didn't answer, just handed her the paper. She read fast, then stopped, went back to the top. Read slower. That's when she looked up, not confused, not angry, but genuinely afraid. They stepped outside together, voices rising. "What is this?" she demanded. "Eviction notice," he said, voice tight. "Eviction from where?" He didn't need to answer. They both turned and stared at the building behind them. The one they'd thrown me out of. My phone rang. Mother-in-law. I let it ring twice, then answered. Her voice had lost all its ice. "Where are you?" I looked straight through the calf window at her across the asphalt. Exactly where I belong. Silence. Then quieter, "What is this?" I didn't raise my voice. Didn't explain. I said one sentence, "It's called ownership," and hung up. They barged into the calf 10 minutes later. Not walking, rushing. The door banged open, heads turned. My mother-in-law's eyes found me in the corner. Her steps faltered, then stopped. "Sarah," she began. "Elena." I corrected, my real name. "Not the one you used when you needed a caretaker." She froze, then forced a paper smile and slid into the chair across from me uninvited. "There's been a terrible mistake," she said. "This notice, someone clearly made an error." My father-in-law stood, still gripping the paper like it might dissolve. No mistake, I said. Her smile tightened. You don't understand how ownership works, dear. The house belongs to the family. I held her gaze. You're right, I said. Relief flickered across her face, just not your branch of it. The relief died. My father-in-law stepped forward. We've lived there for 15 years. You cannot simply eject us. I didn't, I replied. You ejected yourselves. Silence, because we both knew exactly what I meant. She leaned closer, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Listen carefully. We can settle this privately. No need for escalation. It's already escalated. Her eyes fluttered. For the first time, uncertainty. Because the woman they expected to crumble was sitting right in front of them, completely still. They didn't argue after that. The tone shifted. Our son would never have wanted this. My mother-in-law said softly, trying a new angle. I let that hang in the air, then answered just as quietly. My husband made sure this would happen. That stopped her cold. Because now it wasn't me speaking. It was him, and they couldn't negotiate with a dead man. My father-in-law finally sat down, slower, older. He wouldn't have turned his back on his own blood, he said. I looked at him. He didn't, I replied. He just made sure you couldn't turn on me. Silence. Heavy. Final. They had built everything on one assumption, that I was alone. No protection, no voice, no leverage. They were wrong. They had always been wrong. My mother-in-law's knuckles went white, gripping the table edge. What do you want? She asked. Not a demand. A question. That was new. I didn't answer immediately. I looked past them, through the glass at the building across the street. Lights still on. Doors still open, but no longer theirs. Nothing, I said. They both frowned. Then why are you doing this? My father-in-law asked. I stood slowly, picked up my bag. Because you told me exactly where I belonged, I said calmly. I met her eyes one last time. And I believed you. Then I turned and walked out, leaving them at that table without control for the first time in their lives. They didn't vacate immediately. People like them never believe the first notice, or the second. They believe in delay and lawyers and the universe bending to their will. But this time, nothing bent. The second notice arrived with a deadline. The third came with a sheriff's reference. By the fifth day, they were packing, not arguing, not calling relatives, just quiet. I didn't return while they were inside. I didn't need to watch. I'd already seen enough. When I finally walked back through the front door, the house was empty. No voices, no footsteps, no presence trying to occupy space that was never theirs. Just silence, clean, final, mine. I moved through each room slowly. Nothing physical had changed. But everything felt lighter, as if something foreign had been extracted. On the kitchen counter, a handwritten note. My mother-in-law's cursive. You didn't have to destroy us. I read it once, then folded it. Because she was wrong, I did have to. Not for revenge, not for the money. For something simpler, clarity. The moment they told me my place was the curb, they made a decision. I simply answered it. I walked to the upstairs window, looked down at the street below. Same view. Same city. Completely different life. My husband had protected me, not with promises, not with poetry, but with legal structure. With decisions made while he was still breathing. And now, for the first time since he was gone, I wasn't being pushed out. I was standing exactly where I belonged. If this story hit something in you, hit like and subscribe to Winds of Thought. We tell stories about power, silence, and the moment women stop apologizing.